The Dragon King's Daughter, Round 9. Ryker's Island versus the Yellow Rose. Nici, who are you talking to? Asked my mom. The house was full of people who had virtually come out of the woodwork to support our family after Chip's death. The funeral was a success. The parlor was packed beyond capacity, and several male friends commented to me in later conversations that they had never seen so many beautiful women. Chip professed he had loved and fought with the best of them, and the turnout was proof. The obituary probably had less to do with all the people who had come to pay homage than the grapevine. News traveled fast, and people we had not heard from for years showed up or called to send their condolences. He had struck a chord in so many. No one, Mom," I muttered in a stupor. My mom looked at me knowingly, deciding to wait for the confrontation that would deliver the information of the obviously very distressing call. "Sabra's where?" I asked the receiver. "You've got to be kidding," I responded in cliché to the response. "Jesus Cristo," I muttered under my breath. "This is unbelievable." Chip's been dead for 3 days. We just had the funeral, and Sabra, who stayed in Brooklyn to support Alberto, who had been arrested before her brother's death for the biggest cocaine charge in the borough's long history, had just been arrested also. "Tula, I'll call you back when I come up with the money or figure out what to do. I need to chant." I hung up, leaving Tula feeling frustrated. She had called to see if I could send money to bond Sabra out of jail, as if I had thousands of dollars lying around. I knew that my chanting, as well as any conniving thought patterns, would lead me to the solution I was looking for. I knew all along it would be Mom. "Well, Mom, I know you just buried your son, and by the way, the funeral arrangements were great. But hey, you've got a new dilemma to face. Your oldest daughter was arrested today, and she's been taken to Ryker's Island. I'm sure the ferry ride is free. Isn't it fun being a mother?" I composed in my head. "We're going to need about $12,000 to bail her out. Are you with me?" I eagerly pretended to ask. "How am I going to tell her?" I wondered again. Con cojones, I supposed. My mother left for Brooklyn the next day. Thank goodness for the affluence that left our family with enough bread to butter the hands of the East Coast authorities, because we at least had the means to free an imprisoned daughter. She asked me for my strength before she left Denver. I was willing to muster up what I could, but my heart felt pained and empty. To tell the truth, there wasn't much strength in me. Even my 3-year-old Buddhist practice was at a standstill. My faith was tender. Maybe I had buried it with my brother or left it down in the Mexican jungle. Although I wasn't feeling the force or the passion, I chanted anyway because I knew it would help my mom. The process of retrieving her daughter was grim. The district attorney was quite excited with this drug bust that supposedly involved a Colombian general and decided to use it to capture the throne of mayor. So they put Eudora through the ringer. One slimy lawyer ripped off a substantial amount of money, but left enough for the next New York attorney to get his cut, and so on and so forth, with so many necessary and unnecessary involvements that it got way scary, way fast. There is a bundle of truth in the poor man's proverb. Once you start dealing with the law, you're dealing big money away. It's just set up that way. My mom got her daughter out all right, in spite of all the misleading information and backstabbing bad guys who lurked within every moment of that trying time. Sabra was not defeated. She endured the hard time, which turned out to be more time than anybody figured she'd have to do. 5 whole days is enough to know that fresh air and sunshine is everything it's cracked up to be. She, who had previously discarded her Buddhist faith, long enough anyway to allow for all this mess to activate, became a professional. She chanted at least 3 hours a day to overcome the unthinkable. A lifetime in prison meant no more chances. My mom told me that Sabra entered the courtroom for the arraignment all aglow. Little did she know how much Sabra had chanted. Naturally, Sabra's prayers led to her freedom, although she had 2.5 years of hearings and court proceedings to fulfill before granted a plea and 5 years probation. Sabra said prison was a thing that should not be. She said nothing like prison would exist in a world that was sane. They shifted her from the underground catacomb-like dungeons of the Brooklyn holding tank to Ryker's Island. But first, with the full intent of dismantling her composure, they put my sister in a cage that was about 4 by 4 and was situated right in the middle of the holding tank in the basement, which was exclusively a male area. The cage was open-barred on all sides with the standard overflow of excrement in the toilet. Sabra was left to lean against the bars of the cell, on display, just like Geronimo after his capture, to all the cops and soon-to-be convicted felons alike. The transparent cube that held my sister prisoner was in a room that lay beyond the heavy metal doors that slammed shut behind her as they paraded her down the prison hallway. The untried convicts, drunks, and question-mark cases loved having her paraded down the aisle. They ran their aluminum drinking cups along the bars of their cells, making catcalls and the most disgusting propositions. Alberto got news that his long, golden-haired princess was there within minutes, being as he was incarcerated in the very same jailhouse, because she caused such a ruckus. She was kept there for a moment before they hastened her upstairs to the designated women's holding area. Thank goodness again for all the chanting she'd been doing for Alberto. It helped her in more ways than she'll ever be able to grasp through sheer intellect. Take Gogo, for instance, a prison ally for sure. She was Sabra's protection. That's all there is to it. When Sabra woke up her first morning in prison, she was taken to breakfast for her a.m. meal. It was oatmeal without taste and a color that matched the bland. A camouflage meal that blended well into the graying interior of everything inside the prison. After the morning meal, Sabra was given a dollop of Vaseline on top of an industrial hand-drying towel, along with some soap and a toothbrush to keep her teeth clean, in order to smile that special inmate smile. After her beauty regime had been undertaken with the aforementioned supplies, Sabra moved back into general population. Sabra felt a need to get her bearings and moved through the dormitory towards the window. She wasn't aware that as she moseyed along, she was moving out of the white woman area, past the Puerto Rican turf, into the most spacious African American area. And it was unwarranted territory for this white woman named Sabra. Gogo stepped in just as another woman challenged. "Why you bringing your pekka ass over here for, white girl?" Sabra froze. She had actually raised herself up tippy-toe to look out the window, waving her naivete like a bright red flag. Gogo moved in between Marie and Sabra, shook her head, and diffused the verbal confrontation with a subdued tone as she spoke. "Hey, Marie, leave her alone. She doesn't know." "Hey, girl, you go on back down to the other side there." Gogo thrust out her chin in indication of where Sabra needed to go. Sabra didn't hesitate. She scuttled back to where it read without saying, "White women only," and huddled into a heap on her cot. Although the good guy cops had warned her to keep her thick, waist-long, golden locks tied up in a knot on her head, the hair had come tumbling down in the preliminary shower with lye. While complying with the infirmary's way of keeping out cooties, Sabra's tresses made some of the women think she was a show-off for growing all that hair, and eyed her with animosity. Gogo's protective presence kept Sabra safe throughout her stay, a debt Sabra owes to this day. Lunch was a dose of raw chicken served up with some home-style touch of mashed potatoes. It was tuberculosis tasting. The inmates didn't hesitate to inform her, either, that it was seasoned by the kitchen crew, who had the habit of nose-blowing and hacking right into the food. My sister Sabra had been one of my saviors. She had saved me from a drug habit that had virtually begun when I was 13, and she did it, you recall, through her prayer for my health, safety, and happiness, rather than turning me over to dignified authorities, which in my case would have killed me. My brother had just died, and now my Joan of Arc sister was incarcerated. I was a Sagittarian who had lost both bow and arrow. Chip, Sabra, and I had all lived together when I was 17. I had recently returned to Denver from boarding school in Arizona. Chip was homeless as usual, and Sabra was healing from a brutal battering administered by her common-law husband of 4 years. We united, brother and sisters, and shared an apartment for one summer. At first we did great. Sabra was a manager at the apartment where we lived. She hooked Chip up with a job doing maintenance, and I got myself a little job at Kmart. As Sabra's bruises began to fade, and the newness of the summer gave in to the heat, the devilish nature of our family's dysfunctionality manifested. Sabra worked hard and ate too much, covering her hidden anguish with a layer of blubber. My brother and I partied up a storm and a half. We were kids who had no boundaries, and quite naturally turned a good thing into trash. Why try to hide it? We were once again out of control on that fortuitous highway of chance. We were so very disrespectful toward life. I am amazed at how many tries she's let me have at trying to get it right. I mean, what it takes to be a true human being. I'm not proud of myself for any of it, or consider any of my adolescent antics entertaining. I'm ashamed of myself, really, and hope I can achieve a state of life that permeates the 3 existences of past, present, and future, all wrapped up in the moment, real soon. I never, ever, never want to represent myself with behaviors so reprehensible again. It gets worse as I get older, too. I'll be pondering along, and all of a sudden I'll think of something underhanded I did when I was a kid and feel like I'll never get over it. People say I'm way too hard on myself. I'm such a great person, but I'm glad I'm as strict as I am. I know how much it matters, and I'm sick of picking myself up from the ground. It no longer indicates good character. I had mastered self-flagellation, but had to leave it behind because the upright Buddha was quite clear and quite bold in his teaching. There are no excuses. One late July morning, or was it early August? I'm trying to tell this story straight. I woke up with the notion to go and visit my friend Michelle in the heart of Texas. It turned out she wasn't exactly in the heart of Texas anymore. She had moved closer to the border with her Mexican boyfriend. So it was off to Fort Stockton, Texas I ventured. I got a plane ticket out of some small fry hustler who ran an after hours in what was considered, in 1975 Denver, a very seedy side of town. I lured him into buying me the ticket by promising him I would return with another young girl. He agreed because he was stimulated by the prospect of building a stable. I had him buy me a ticket to San Angelo, Texas, not really knowing where Fort Stockton was situated in relationship to it. Off I flew, all by my 17-year-old lonesome, into a version of the Wild West known as Texas. Texas was diabolical to the biblical degree. A man I had encountered on the airplane stopped to talk to me at the San Angelo airport once we had arrived. "Are you all set up with a ride to get to Fort Stockton?" he asked. "I was looking for change to make a phone call," I answered, and the truth of it is, I didn't have enough money to prompt the machine and then go on to make a collect call. That's how phones worked in those days. First you put in the dime, dialed the O, and got your dime returned. Not no more. But anywho, I didn't have a clue who I was trying to call or what for anymore. The nice man continued, "Can I help you out if you need anything? Really, I have a daughter at home, and she's right about your age, and I wouldn't want her stranded in an airport. I'm here with my business partners who are picking up our rental car right about now. I told them I was going to see if you needed a ride to the bus station or if I could help you buy a ticket to where you're going." "Where are you going again?" he asked. "A place called Fort Stockton, I guess," came my somewhat deflated response. "I don't even know where it is," I added, and looked up at his sincere and fatherly face with a vulnerable expression. "There's a map over here," he pointed and started to walk in the direction of his gesture. I followed. "Now see, here we are, right here in San Angelo, and you're headed down southwest toward the border. Doesn't look like Fort Stockton is much of a town. Are you sure that's where she is?" he questioned. I nodded my head in an affirmative motion. "All right, well, let's see here. We can give you a ride to the bus station, and I'll give you a few dollars on top of a ticket. Let me go ask this lady where the bus terminal is located." He walked off to a check-in station and left me with the luggage. When he returned, he had all the information, being as he was a man of action who sought solutions. "Now, all we have to do is find my partners, who should be over here waiting for us outside of baggage pickup." I followed him through some doors, and sure enough, there was a car full of men waiting for my unmasked hero, who was definitely heaven sent. He walked up to the car and leaned into the window while he explained my dilemma to his business associates. I got a creepy feeling from the interaction. They were taking way too long discussing the prospect of taking me to the bus stop. It shouldn't have been that complicated. My intuition was right, of course, because it was a very uncomfortable car I climbed into. The men were jeering like bully boys about to steal candy and immediately became solicitous toward me. One man came off with, "Let's go to the hotel room first and then drop you off." My good guy argued, "Leave her alone. I'm the one who offered her the ride. She didn't ask for any help from us. Let me drop you guys off at the hotel and I'll give her a ride to the bus." "No way, Larry. You're not responsible for her. She wouldn't be in the car if she didn't want to come back to the hotel with us. Isn't that right, baby? You want to come back to the hotel with us," he mistakenly confirmed. I felt totally sick in my gut. "You know you want to come have some drinks up in the room with us, don't you, baby?" Barfo asked. "No, I better get to the bus. I really need to get to my friend's house," I stated pragmatically. I was really trying to maintain. "It's too late to catch a bus. Who are you trying to bullshit, baby?" He got mean. "Don't pretend like you don't know the score. What you doing here in San Angelo anyway, without any family? Are you a runaway? Well, let me tell you something, Dolly. You owe me for this ride. If you want to ride to your friend's house, you're going to have to get up off it." He continued harassing me in hopes of fulfilling his fantasy, but I was totally disinterested, which understates the disgust I felt in my belly. "Just let me out here, you motherfucker," I let her rip. "Hey, look here, you little whore. You're out here running these streets like you ain't got a mommy and daddy. Don't you dare talk to me like that," he retorted, along with some other inappropriate accusations and propositions. "Fuck you," I said. "Let me out." I was crying as he pulled over and dumped me out on the street corner. I pulled my little carrying case suitcase up under my buttocks and sat with my head rested in my cupped hands, feeling futile as ever. The street was quite active, as it turned out. I had been thrown to the curb on a boulevard that was a main drag and the local hangout where all the San Angelo teenagers went to show off their souped-up wheels. ZZ Top spilled out of car windows, singing ultra cool and smooth, "White Boy, Fool for Your Stockings, Texas Blues." Baby, you might be bad and nationwide, but I'm all the way international, I one-upped 'em in my gamey head. Matter of fact, I'm downright global, I surmised in playful thought, wanting to include the world's water. I observed with interest the Southern belles make their entrance. They mostly showed up individually or in pairs in their daddy's very nice cars. They presented themselves like magnolia blossoms in full bloom, provocative princesses in their armor of golden tan skin, slight smiles, sweet Texas accents, and the graceful wavering of their hands as they ran long and tapered fingers through even longer, soft as satin hair. They were somehow trained by those magnolia breezes in the art of geisha, good as they were at being precocious in the most subtle, unnerving way. They sat on their daddy's caddies with one perfectly petite sun-kissed leg thrown over another in their intent focus to lure in their bait. The young men halted their hot rods, stopping to kiss on lips puckered poutingly for lack of attention. I sensed the Southern culture was a very precise and practiced thing. The spring chickens were flocked around the bundle of me, but managed to ignore the uncomfortable presence I represented. They honestly didn't see me. I sat on the corner momentarily relieved of my plight by the sport of the night. I about bolted through the threshold of the entertaining escapism life was conjuring up around me when Larry resurfaced in the company rental car and honked the horn at me. "Hey," he said as he parked the car and got out to talk to me. "I'm so sorry about what happened with those guys. I had no idea they were going to behave like that. Please let me give you a ride to the station." "No, that's all right," I answered to his pleas. "I'll figure something out," I told him with doubt. "Well, at least let me give you some money then," he said. "I feel terrible leaving you out here on the street. Can I get you a motel room? I'll just get it for you and then leave. Since you're a minor, you'll need me to sign." "Nah," I said unconvincingly. "I'll be all right." "Here then, take this 20. I insist. I wish you'd let me do more. Is this going to be enough? Hey, I'm so sorry about what happened with my business partners. I had no idea they were going to act like that. I didn't mean to put you in that position. Here, let me write down my phone number at the hotel where we're staying so you can call me if you need anything. Please, I hate leaving you out here." He might have kept on going all night, so I relieved him by taking the 20, thanking him, and sending him on his way. He's probably still feeling guilty for leaving me out there all alone in the Lone Star State, witness as he was to the perils that might await me. The traffic thinned out a little when the wholesome kids who respected the authority of their parents left to make it home on time. A motorcycle rider stopped to talk to me. This kid was different than the others. Not only was he sporting a two-wheeled vehicle, but he was also the only one who noticed me perched on the curb of the street. "Where are you from, stranger?" he asked. "Denver," I said, "and I need a ride." "Where to?" he asked quick. "Fort Stockton," I answered point blank. "I'm going to see my sister," I offered. "Let's go," he said, and we did. Although I was extremely persuasive, the kid only got me halfway to Fort Stockton before he decided to turn around. "We're not going to make it," he said. "We need gas." "Why can't you stop at one of these old farmhouses and ask for gas?" I asked in observation of the gas pumps that looked as much a part of the farm as the barns. "Garl," he said with a twang, "if you disturb these old farmers round here, especially at 3 o'clock in the morning, they'll shoot you just the same as help you." Thanks for the info, I thought in my head, and argued for him to continue. But to no avail, the kid turned around and headed back to San Angelo. The night was crisp in spite of the humidity, and so carried the warbling song of the frogs that sounded like they were impersonating crickets through invisible waves of atmosphere. Every croak deserved a reply. I suppose that's why their tune is so melodious and permeated my mind. I let the swamp frog echo break down into the vibration that ruled the molecule. The universe was born again under the July sky. The motorcycle version of the Texas Ranger took me to a shack in his backyard, opened the dilapidated door, and let me in. "You can sleep here," he said with chivalry. "I'll go inside to get you a blanket." He came back with a blanket and had obviously got to thinking, because he also had a proposition on his mind. He leaned down to kiss me. I turned my head and told him to get lost. He laid down flat on top of me, squashing me with his unleashed lust. But I knew it was just a notion, and I pushed him off and shoved him out the door to confirm my disinterested intentions. I wasn't even mad, really. Something inside of me knew that kid was going to try, and so I guess I half expected it when he landed on top of me. I was glad when he left, but the experience left me all alone with my despair. I stared up at the ceiling of my makeshift housing from the raw dirt floor on which I was lying and followed the form of a spider. She was every bit as focused on me. There was nothing itsy or bitsy about her either. She stretched out a spider leg that was an inch longer than my finger, and then she did a trick. She wrapped her hairy, outstretched leg around a spider web wire and spiraled down to the bottom. It was nature's refreshing way of amusing an anguished soul. I will admire that spider of the night forever. When the sun came up, I headed out. I was walking along the first main street that looked like it would get me out of the residential area I had landed in. A balding man pulled up. For me, the spark of adventure had left this trip. I was walking hung-headed, dragging my feet, and barely hanging on to my bag full of fresh underwear. "Can I give you a ride somewhere?" the guy asked. "Sure," I said, wanting to put the wasted attempt of the night before behind me. I got in his two-door and leaned my weary head against the car window. "Where are you headed?" was the question. "To the bus station." "Wherever that is. Oh, and thanks for the lift," I added. "No problem," he said, and got to thinking. "You know, I just dropped my wife off at church, and she'll be there for a while. I'm sure you could use a shower, and you're welcome to come to my house to freshen up." He offered his family's facilities with Christian charity. I didn't hesitate. "I'd love to take a shower," I said. "Thank you so much." "No problem. You look like you could use one to get some of that dust off of you." He continued, "I'll give you a ride to the bus station after your shower." "Thanks again," I said, glad that this man had religion. In most cases, a person with any kind of faith founded in good has some kind of moral fabric you can count on. And I say this for a reason, because after I had showered at this man's house and was coming out of the bathroom, he blocked the doorway with his body and tried to get acquainted. I was so sick and tired of the whore-virgin dichotomy that I continually had to reckon with on this excursion that I exploded. "I live at home with my mother and father and am a decent young girl. You offered me an opportunity to shower in your house, and if you had translated that into sex, you should have just said so, because I wouldn't even be here now." "Just get out of my way, sir," I said with a shove to the second guy I had to resort to violence with in the last 24 hours. I made my way past him, through the house to the hall, and did not hesitate as I came to the front door. He chased me through his house, all sorry for his slimy behavior. "Please let me take you to the bus station. Please let me give you a ride. I didn't mean to insult you. You're right. I'm so sorry, miss." I was gone, on my way with a strut that really meant business. I went down another street that was residential. I had no idea where I was going, but I was fueled with fury for the moment. That man came a-honking just like the last one who had left me, and I ended up getting back into his car and accepting a ride to the station. He was truly sorry for being so rude, for taking advantage of the weak and the mild. He gave me another 20 to make sure I had enough to get to my destination and to appease his guilty conscience. I walked into the bus station, watched and waited until he drove off, then left the bus station on foot, determined to keep the money in case of emergency. I walked a little ways, caught sight of the highway, and walked down the long gravel-edged road that led to it. I started passing semis that were parked along the roadway, waiting patiently for their drivers, who were inside a cafe eating breakfast. One blue jean-clad leg emerged from a truck doorway, followed by a long, lean body and a friendly, refreshing face. He looked happy. "Hi," I said to him, hoping he'd answer. "Well, hello," he responded. "Want some breakfast?" "Do I look like I'm starving?" I asked. "Not hardly," was his honest reply. "I was a big girl that summer and had bumps all over my face. There was nothing fine about me. I was in one of my totally dumpy states. With me, it's always the inside that rules. If I'm not feeling good about myself, it's physically apparent." "I'm not really hungry," I said, deciding right then and there to go on a crash diet. "But I do need a ride." I was soliciting. "Where to?" that friendly face inquired. This guy was really growing on me. "A place called Fort Stockton," I let him know. "Are you headed in that direction?" "Fort Stockton, huh? I suppose I could get you there without having to change my route too much. Come on inside with me while I eat some breakfast. You can at least have some coffee. Come on, I'll buy you a cup." You should have seen the look on Michelle's face when we pulled up in that shiny black semi right up to her trailer's front door. She screamed, "Nici!" with so much gusto. I felt just maybe like the whole escapade might have been worth it. "Well, little lady, looks like I cut off my favorite trucker with a "Michelle!" as I jumped out of the truck door. There she was, the reason I traveled through the state of Texas. One of my very best friends stood holding a culinary knife in hand as she stared in absolute disbelief at the image of me hopping out of this truck. My friend invited us in after we had hugged and laughed like a couple of 17-year-old girls that knew something about the world. It was kind of like a fountain of laughter, like relief from way down deep. The kind-hearted trucker went merrily on his way, proud that he had been instrumental in the reunion of such good friends. I entered the trailer behind my friend, who immediately started getting nervous. She continued preparing a dinner of ground beef, onions, and potatoes, a task that I had obviously interrupted. She explained to me that Johnny would be home from work soon, and she needed to have dinner ready for him. I watched my young friend pretend to be a woman for a while, and then asked her what was really going on in her world. It was then that Johnny showed up. "Grullo, where are you, little mouse?" he asked my petite little friend. "I'm here, Johnny. Dinner's almost ready." She walked toward the trailer door, wiping her hands on a diaper-thin apron before she embraced him with a Donna Reed smile glued to her face. He responded with his full hand cupping her behind and pulling her closer to his body. Then he kissed her big and grinned like a lover. "Johnny," she said, "my friend Nici is here visiting from Denver," she said sweetly. "Oh, really? Hello," he said. "Grullo. Would your friend like to smoke some mota? Go on and finish making supper, little mouse, and I'll roll up un chumo magnifico. La mota más prima del mundo es de Mexico." "Forget Hawaii and the Indonesians," he sang while he instructed me in the fine art of marijuana. Cool, I thought. The marijuana was killer. It knocked me into another dimension, which was, unfortunately, not such a good place to be. It made me mighty paranoid to be watching my partying partner playing housewife at such a young age. This is truly scary. I assessed with paranoid eyes wide open. It would have been so nice just to pinch myself and have it be all over. What I witnessed was tragic. This guy was calling my friend Little Mouse in Spanish, and that is what I witnessed. My beautiful Michelle had grown soft and quiet, and quite little. I'm telling you, she barely had a presence. I do not condone it, I certainly don't, but this was the very same girl who I had shared every damn drug in the world with. My most favorite partner in crime was hidden away here in a trailer park in Texas. Tell me it's not true, I said in my head, as she fried the potatoes along with the meat over the gas burner. Gone were the days of walking home at 4 o'clock in the morning singing, "Oh, show me the way to the next whiskey bar." True as we were to the Doors' mission statement. Never again, I thought. This girl's a goner. How wrong I was in my initial evaluation, because as soon as Johnny had gone to bed, the little mouse scurried into the living room area. I was sprawled out on the couch, mesmerized by the weather station on the cable TV station. We didn't have cable in Colorado yet, and I was kind of fascinated by it. Cable and the BC powders they kept advertising for the head. Take a BC powder, the advertisement said. I had never heard of powders before and relished the idea that one envelope full would make my world brighter. The Texas solution to all of life's woes. "What's up?" I asked La Gruita. "Is Johnny asleep?" "Nici, I want to leave." "Leave?" I questioned. "You tell Johnny?" I asked, even though I didn't want to know. "No, Nici, he can't know. He'll kill me if I try to leave. He's told me before." God bless finesse, I started thinking. The only way we are going to get out of here is with Johnny's blessing. "Michelle, you're going to have to ask him for permission to go visit your parents. That is the only way. Play it off, little sister, like seeing me reminded you of how much you miss your mom. Tell him you just need to go for a visit and that you'll return." I tried to reassure her. I also knew Johnny was running heron from the border towns into Texas, and that he had a full-blown habit. It was a dangerous trailer for me to be sitting in right about then. I was a threat to this man's setup, but even scarier was the thought of a drug bust with me or Michelle present, which broke down into the real reason I needed to get us out of there quick. But we had to remain nonchalant. Michelle heeded my advice. After all, I was a master of operations. Heck, we had a history of this. We had already hitchhiked all the way to Albuquerque, New Mexico when we were 15. Her mom couldn't stand me or my influence on her child, but by returning with her daughter this round, I was on the gilded road to redemption. We made it to the Midland, Odessa airport. Michelle had been a wreck the whole excursion, thinking Johnny was going to manifest and kill her. As we hitchhiked through the mesquite-skirted highways, the girl was so skittish I wasn't sure she'd make it. Her hyper countered my knee-jerk reactions. We were highly complimentary in some twisted kind of way. We were rescued by another salt-of-the-earth type mother on the eve of another adventure. When I had called my connection to get us tickets back to Denver, arrangements couldn't be made until the following day. This left us once again stranded in such a way that we were targeted by a couple of barracudas who were trying to make like men. They approached us with an offer to ride with them in their private plane to a cozy spot in Mexico. Thank you, just the same. This woman had overheard that we were stuck in the Midland Odessa airport and had observed the sauced-up slime balls proposition us and decided to invite us to her house for the overnight stay. We found out later that she had discussed it with her husband first before putting him on a plane, and so it was with his blessing that we stayed. The kind woman took great care of us that night. She offered us ice cream and homemade cake after we had showered and devoured a very good supper. We slept like babies. Apprehension was replaced with security, and it felt good to be able to let down our guard and bask in the moonshine, illuminating the room through pristine windows. We flew into Denver the next morning with the promise we would call the woman who provided the shelter to let her know we were okay. It was a promise we didn't keep. Michelle had to relinquish her cooking knife to the lady for safekeeping because she couldn't carry it on the plane. I'm glad it got left in Texas. After we arrived in Denver, it only took a day to permanently ditch the bad guy petty gangsters. We had to disappear quickly because they were steady making plans to take us to Alaska. Michelle was then returned to her parents, who petitioned me for sainthood. Michelle had an ideal suburban childhood after that. She dated football players, went to prom, hung out with kids who had direction, shifted her drug of choice to cocaine, but used it only socially. She gained weight, held her head with pride, finished high school, and smiled her coquettish smile with a confidence I had never seen on her before. She was the dream girl at Arvada West High School, the Cindy Crawford girl next door looking girl with supermodel beauty who never got discovered. All of which was of minor consequence. I had made her mom happy, and that made my life worth living. I was happy to see that free bird fly. One thing about the whole expedition I'll never forget was the night before Michelle got returned to her parents. I was alone in the house that had the double identity of an after-hours joint as well. It was a Sunday night, so nobody was out clubbing. Joey, the owner who had made it possible to partake in the Texas adventure, was out with his friend, and they had taken Michelle with them. I dug through some of Joey's records and picked out a vinyl of a Spinners recording. The album contained the selection Sweet Sadie, which is sad beyond reason, about a mom and her struggles and how she managed to make it in spite of everything. The song repeats how much we love you, the words vocalizing a universal. Children are inherently born with love and appreciation for their parents, I believe. Nothing is so intriguing to a baby as a human face, especially one that is familiar. They will study and ponder every crevice as if they are looking into the mirror of life, mesmerized by their own power. I cried my heart out, stooped over as I sat on the top stair of the old Victorian staircase, rocking back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, as if in a rocker, being held by my mother.